Hi, everybody. Welcome to It Is Just a Phase. I am Linz. This is our inaugural episode. So excited. So bear with us as we experiment with what this looks like and feels like and sounds like. Elizabeth, my very good friend Elizabeth Watson, is with me today. And we wanted to talk about one of our favorite topics, toxic positivity. So
Dun dun
it's
dun.
dun dun dun. It seems to be rampant as of late, in both work and in
Yeah.
life. And I'm sure that you have a lot of experience with it being a new mom. That's usually when it first rears its ugly head
Totally.
in the regular life space. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think new mom, I think the COVID land has made toxic positivity particularly horrendous. I think it's something that people are trying their best, right? They're trying to be kind, they're trying to be positive, and they're just killing with kindness takes on a whole different connotation because you're
Yeah.
killing them. So I think it's one of those things that is so difficult to navigate too, because what a jerk if you say that they're wrong, right? When they
Yeah.
say this seemingly positive thing to you. So it's definitely been a wild ride. Becoming a new mom during COVID was like a double toxic whammy.
Yeah, it's hard enough as it is. And then, just with every person having their own opinion about what to do and how to do it. And even from people without the experience of being a mom, have like, well, you should do it this way, or just, you're kind of going about your day and they ask you a simple question like, how's it been going? Are you sleeping? And you just kind of give the blanket answer without wanting to go too into it. And then they like support your answer, but then in doing that, they don't know that they're really not supporting what you're really going through too. So it's kind of,
Right,
like
like
you said, killing with
invalidate
kindness.
you
And
in their attempt at support.
yeah, it's, I think also just, and especially with what I do with Blue Moon, like in the spiritual realm, there's this whole, good vibes only type attitude. And there's a
Yeah.
space for good vibes. Certainly, I'm all about good vibes, but to discount the fact that we have emotions and problems and issues, and really not allowing the space to dive into those emotions and problems and issues and just saying good vibes only really takes away all of that ability that we have to like look into ourselves and make our lives better or more enjoyable. And that's why I'm such a huge proponent of shadow work. I don't think there's nearly enough people doing shadow work as opposed to light work. There's a space for both of them, but you gotta incorporate
Well,
both
it's
of
funny
them.
that you say that because yeah, and it's okay to have hard days and it's okay to have bad feelings. And I think that the word bad makes it really scary because I don't think being frustrated and I don't think being a little angry or sad is necessarily a terrible thing. It's half of the human experience. It's your professional experience. It's your experience as a new mom. And to negate that is doing a disservice to everybody for a lot of reasons. It reminds me of all of the conversations that we have about social media and it's people's highlight. It's only seeing that someone's having a great time all the time, then you feel like a big jerk because you don't have a great time all the time, right? And there must be something wrong. And what am I doing? And I think of it in the context of someone professionally, right? This person keeps getting promoted and it's taking me longer. Why am I such a loser? Or that person's baby sleeps all night. Why am I not sleeping? Or that person goes on all these vacations. How come I don't travel this much? And so I think that it becomes this battle in your brain of what am I doing wrong? Which, God forbid, you have that feeling and tell somebody about it because good vibes only. So it's this really difficult sort of cycle that you find yourself in because you're comparing and then you feel inadequate because you're having feelings that may be lesser than. And then again, you're having bad feelings. So you must be doing something wrong. So it's a vicious cycle. And I think good vibes only is a really dangerous mantra or methodology, because at a certain point, the bad vibes will supersede the good vibes and you're gonna just fall apart.
Hmm. You in particular are very good at avoiding that, toxic response. And even sometimes, like, be dealing with something and I'll text you and I know I'm going to get like a solid response back, which is one thing I really appreciate about you. It's I think I lean too hard-handed sometimes, even myself. I'm like, listen, you just got to get out of it. Like I acknowledge the negative piece of things, but I'm kind of like, what can we do to get over it instead of like
Mm-hmm.
allowing myself or someone else to be in it because I am uncomfortable with being in it. So my way of getting over it is to just do that because I can't wallow. Like that's not healthy for
Mm-hmm.
me, but that doesn't mean it's not healthy for someone else to be able to sit in it. So, like that's one thing that I know that I struggle with sometimes is just like how can I allow that person to be in it and support them to get out. And one thing that I tried to start doing or incorporating is if I'm not asking the question directly, I'm considering it myself, depending on who I'm talking to and what that conversation is or what level it is, how personal or non-personal it is. But I'll kind of ask myself, like, do you want support right now? Do you want help? Do you want advice? Or do you just need to talk? Even earlier today, I think I
Yeah.
texted you about something and you were like, I don't think I have any good advice. I'm like, that's okay. I don't need it. I just needed to say something. So I think like
Right.
supporting people or being able to help support them in a positive way is just that. It's validation and acknowledgement. It's not advice and it's not how to make it better. It's how can you be there to support them in the way that they need it and giving them the opportunity to figure that out too. Because I sure as hell don't know what I need all the time.
No. And I think you said two things that really resonate with me. The first one is that it's not healthy for you to sit in that for too long. My problem is I don't allow myself to sit in it at all. So I think, as you said, I'm really good with other people. I know that sometimes they need somebody just to acknowledge that they're going through something difficult. And, it's not I'm so sorry that happened to you. It's that sounds really hard. Or I think the word I used with you today was infuriating or something, right? That is horrible. I don't have anything productive to offer to you except solidarity, sister. Like, hey, I understand that you're going through something. For you know not to sit in it too long. I am good with not pushing other people's feelings off of them. I'm really hard on myself. So my toxic positivity issues personally aren't within my interactions with others. It's my self-talk.
Yeah.
And that's what I need to work on. And I think we're all hardest on ourselves in a lot of ways. But from
Yeah,
my
for
own
sure.
self-reflection, I know that that's something that I really need to work on. And that could be in a myriad of avenues. But I think about it professionally, right?
Mhm.
COVID has been a really difficult time for many people professionally. For people in my industry, it's been busy and hard because of the human interactions. I work in human resources. And so you can say, my job's been really difficult because of COVID. And people are like, well, at least you have a job. And that's my own self
Right.
talk, right?
At
Like, you didn't
least.
get laid off. Yeah, at least you didn't get laid off.
Hmm.
Or, I'm, as
Yeah.
you
Be
said,
happy you have
I
a
have
job.
yeah, you're so lucky you didn't get laid off. Well, that doesn't mean that the fact that I have this job negates the stress. It's
Hmm.
great. I'm grateful to be employed, totally.
Yes.
However,
It's
it's still stressful.
it's that qualifying phrase I hear a lot from anybody, especially in our industry, because, where other people were losing jobs or, the work just wasn't there, whatever the case may be, if you are in an industry that happened to blow up because of COVID, not that we weren't busy as it was anyways, but
Right.
of course, anybody who needs help that runs a business needs HR now all of a sudden. So,
Mm-hmm.
we're crazy busy. And I feel like anyone that I talked to was like, I'm so grateful that I have a job, but
Right.
it's like you don't need the but. Like we
Yes,
understand
I
you're
love
grateful
my
you have a
kids,
job.
but I need a break.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
we
it's
know
the
you love
same
your
thing.
kids. It's okay to need a break.
Yeah. You can love your kids
It is
and
okay.
need a vacation a lot.
So, and is what I'm working on so much. It's funny you say that. And instead of but.
Mhm.
So, instead of saying, I'm so grateful that I have a job, but I'm really stressed out, it's okay to say, I'm really stressed out and I'm grateful that I didn't get laid off. And
Mhm.
those are, they don't have to disqualify each other. One does
Yeah.
not negate the other. And
Yeah, for
I
sure.
think that I really love my kids and I could really use a week-long stay in a hotel with no one else around me. Those are two things that are okay to experience at the same time. And so, and statements in my own self-talk have been really helpful to try to overcome that but statement that
Mhm.
I've been saying. And
Yeah.
at what point is the but is the thing that you're grateful for that you're like still alive, right? Like I'm holding on by a thread, but I'm alive.
I'm
And
in the
that's not a
world.
good place to be. Yeah. It
Yeah.
hasn't taken me out yet. So I think that that's a dangerous road to continue on. As I said, it will just completely overtake you at a certain point. And so the and statements are helpful, in my opinion,
Mhm.
for me.
Yeah, I think that's a great, I don't know if you want to call it strategy or whatever, but I think we have to be cognizant and conscious at all times of how we are speaking to ourselves. And when I say at all times, I don't mean you're constantly evaluating every thought you have, but I think we need to make a conscious effort to sit and think about how did my day go? What do I want to improve?
Mhm.
What went really well? I think we need to do a better job about looking at both sides of things and giving ourselves space and grace to get to a place where we want to get with our goals, with our intentions, whatever it might be. In you know, I don't know. I probably should have done more research about like when the phrase toxic positivity like took hold because I know it's kind of one of those like buzzword things. I think it's always been around,
Mhm.
but I think just the climate is making it social media, I think blew it up like you mentioned. Seeing everybody
Yeah.
else and only their positive moments makes you go like, "Well, wait a minute. That's not what my day looks like all the time." And
Right.
it's funny because years ago, probably like 7 years ago, I had a friend who and that doesn't sound like that long ago, but in the scope of like Facebook, social media, cell phones, like everything that we do today, like it's almost a world of difference even that long ago.
Totally.
And
Mhm.
I worked with her and she was like so fixated on what other people were doing on Facebook. And she was I'm not a blocker. Like I don't because I just ignore people or I don't add them if I don't know them. Like that's helpful too. But
Mhm.
um she was just so like obsessed with what she saw on Facebook and like why isn't my life like that and why do they have everything and I don't have all of that. And I'm like, you neither do they. That's
Right.
one posed snippet of their day. And I mean, I think I'm guilty. We're all guilty. Like I post a picture of my beautiful daughter on Easter and like 10 minutes before that I was probably screaming at her because she wasn't listening to me. So,
Right.
because
It's a
she's a little
highlight reel.
me and doesn't like to listen to people. But um it's I just constantly had a reminder like this don't let that impact you. And is I like social media, especially if you think of like today, COVID for the last year. I haven't physically seen you more than what, twice in the last year,
Yeah.
and we are very good friends. Like you live right
Right.
down the road. It's if we didn't have the ability to kind of connect, it would all fall apart.
Mhm.
So
Right.
think about Zoom. Like Zoom was not a thing a
Oh my
year
gosh,
ago.
it wasn't a verb.
Mm-mm.
14 months ago, Zoom was not a verb, and here we are, and it's been added to the dictionary and all kinds of crazy stuff. But so I think about your thought on social media, and I agree. It's comparison is the thief of joy, right? That is true in all avenues of life. I think it has never been more relevant than it is today in regards to what we're seeing online. Comparison is the thief of joy. We're seeing 1 minute of your Easter weekend, and your daughter looks as cute as a button, and she's living her best life, smiling her face off. But that's probably not how the whole weekend went, and that's
Yeah.
okay. And I don't think anybody's weekend went like that. But I think my husband hates social media, and I really try to curb my opinions sort of in relation to that because his opinions are so extreme. But I think his opinion has some validity when it comes
Yeah.
to social media, particularly for people who don't have potentially like a great self-esteem level or great perspective, if nothing else, right? You don't understand continuously that this isn't everyone's day-to-day conversation, and everything that they're doing on a daily basis isn't the 7 vacations that you think that they took because they posted those pictures. But my husband's opinion on social media is that like Mark Zuckerberg is a criminal and belongs in jail because he's like robbing the happiness of America's youth, which is probably partially
like
true. Like some of that is true.
not false.
You know, he's got a good point. Yeah, he's making a good point there. But I do think that there are
But now I can
some
take a quiz to see what kind of bread I am. So, I mean,
and you know what? You'll get that serotonin boost, and life will be good for the
boom.
next 4 minutes. And
Yes.
yeah, she's happy.
And we'll do it again.
But I think that he has a good point. Yeah, I will do it 7 more times
Yeah.
today, and then maybe I'll make a loaf of bread. So I think that it is a really interesting perspective because I don't think my husband is any more or less happy than I am, and I'm a social media user and he's not. I don't think it's a
Mhm.
marked difference in our levels of happiness. I do think that he is not second guessing some of the things that I am. And I think of it in terms of like the mommy accounts that I follow online.
My
So
God.
in terms of
Some of the
danger.
grossest opinions I've ever seen come out of those
Yes, and
groups.
yes, and I think I'm a pretty savvy consumer of that information. I'm not easily swayed by that. I think that I'm
Mhm.
able to form my own opinions and read something and be like, "That's bananas," and I don't
If
get
anything, it's a
brainwashed by
healthy
it.
form of entertainment for us, but
Totally, yeah, but sometimes I do find myself in this moment of, well, uh, for sleep training, which is a controversial topic, but sleep's a hot topic in my house because my daughter is 11 months and she doesn't sleep very well.
there's no sleeping.
And yeah, she sleeps like a baby. It's weird. And so it's one of those things that I do find myself sucked into this like, why is my child sleeping not as good as this person's? And I have no idea how that person actually sleeps, right? Because I don't know them. And so it's
Mhm.
really interesting because my husband and me, our happiness levels aren't different, but I think it's impacted by different things. And my social media use, I think, does have an impact, even though I'm a savvy consumer. He's an anti consumer, and his happiness is impacted differently. And I know social media wasn't the topic, but I do think that toxic positivity and social media are really kind of inextricably linked.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's well, it's groupthink, right? It's
Yeah.
just we all tend to latch on to whatever it is, and whenever we're only seeing one thing, that becomes our reality, and
Yes.
our thoughts are our reality, and that's something that I'm really gonna start pushing with Blue Moon is, like, working around that. Your thoughts become your reality, and I think once I started focusing on that myself, my life started to change in a very positive way, and
Yeah.
again, in a very positive, direction, not in a, like, "My life is great all the time," positive way, but in a way where I'm able to constantly revamp and move on and bring other people with me. Um, y
Hmm.
we all have to improve, but if we can't do that with a support system, you could very quickly like ostracize yourself almost, and that could be a good thing, it could be a bad thing depending on what your situation is. So I just like you said before, like it has to start in your own thoughts, and it has to continue by having discussions like this and kind of getting it out there that like this is something that you should be conscious of, and both delivering it and receiving it. Um,
Yeah.
I've tried to be better about like if I receive it, I try to like point it out appropriately. Um, you
That's
know,
hard.
it's really hard. And for me, it's really hard for me, a person who doesn't have an issue with confrontation
Speaking
or
up.
being
Yeah.
assertive.
Yep.
And I'm only like that because that's what I've done with my career and my life and a bunch of other reasons. I've just become that type of person. But it's still hard. It's not something I want to do. And if you are not an assertive person, if you are kind of like quiet, laid back, let things kind of just go over, like I can't imagine how difficult that would be to acknowledge to somebody like, this is how I'm feeling and I need this to be different.
Well, and
And that can be
also, what
scary.
if you're oh, it's scary for sure, but the other side of that is maybe you're not a passive person. Maybe you're a person who seeks out conflict or doesn't know how to have a crucial conversation. And
Mhm.
anytime you try to acknowledge something like that, it turns into a confrontation. I think that's just as, I don't want to say
Toxic.
dangerous, but it kind of is a dangerous position to be in.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a conflict for sure. But I also think that you can be a person who can point it out. And you talked about ostracizing yourself. And so, in the context of Blue Moon, right, from a professional standpoint, that's a really fine line to walk because
Mhm.
you can only control how you receive that information. You can only control how you interact with somebody else, not how they interact with you. And so, making that decision and choice to kind of speak up about how you interact with a coworker or a supervisor is difficult. Is
Mhm.
it worthwhile? Is it something that will have a net positive? I don't know.
Yeah, that's the question, right? Is like how much pain or joy is that conversation actually going to bring you? And if you're talking
Right.
about this in the context of work,
Mhm.
if that's going to make your life more difficult, and I'm not talking about like egregious cases or anything. I'm
No.
talking about like your day to day. But
Yeah.
if that's not going to, yeah, bring a positive spin, then it's probably not worth your time. And especially now with how work and life is so integrated, um,
Mhm.
it, that carries over very easily into your life. So if it's going to
Yes.
impact you that heavily during work, if it's going to bring it back, like you have to make that distinction of how helpful is this really going to be for me right now?
Yeah. Which is hard, and it's really interesting because you are in this position for a lot of people when it's not like you can leave the office and shake it off. You have your drive home to kind of reset and go
Mhm.
home. Your commute is, like, to the kitchen
Yeah.
or to the other side of your couch. It's not as though you're gonna have this ability to separate what your experience is at work and turn it off. And I found I started working from home well before the Zoom verb came into effect, but it was really difficult to have sort of this mental shut off of work. It really bleeds into your personal life. So having the ability to shift your mindset when you go from work to home is trickier than ever, but it's also more important than ever, I think, to
Mhm.
really have firm boundaries and make sure, again, these boundaries are coming back up, right? We're putting the word boundary on it or the label boundary on it now, but boundaries are important. And I think in terms of toxic positivity, if you don't have the ability to have some boundaries, whether you've expressed them to people or whether they're your own sort of internal mechanisms, you're doing yourself a disservice, but you have to figure out what you need boundaries around before you can erect them,
Mhm.
if you will. So I think that boundaries are important.
Totally. And that's why that's why I started this company, and that's why I'm such a proponent for bridging your two lives. One, because now we have to. Like
Yeah.
that's just reality, and I think we've slowly been progressing there, and what COVID did was just smash it together. But
Yeah.
I hear a lot about like at work, I think in the corporate culture, there's obviously a ton of discussion about like mindfulness and bringing the work-life balance and all of those things, but the reality is there just isn't any anymore. So we can't
There's
talk about
not.
how do we leave work at work and then go have our lives like we need to have our lives? That's not the discussion anymore. And it doesn't start at work, it starts in life. And I think what we need to start doing is identifying who we are. And you're right, just like you said, what are our boundaries? And then applying those boundaries and those identities or, aspects of ourselves into
Mm-hmm.
work. Because if we have those in life, they will be at work too. And we
Mm-hmm.
can't do it backwards. Um, I think that
No.
that backwards flow is where a lot of those issues start. We spend the majority of our time at work. And I'm not talking about like you physically have a job. I'm talking about you could be a stay-at-home mom and that's your job all day. And that is a really, really hard job. I can't do it. Like, that's not me. I'm like, nope, I'm going to work because I cannot be with my kid all day.
But talk about boundaries, right? Like, know
Yeah.
yourself, know what boundaries you need, because in
Hmm.
order to be able to be your best self,
Yeah.
again, be it at home or at work, which you work at home, so where's the distinction? You have to know
Hmm.
what boundaries to set. But I think you bring up an interesting point, because one thing that I know you're a big proponent of is authenticity. And so you can't back into who you want to be at work if you're trying to use your slim hours at home to reset and get yourself centered and get to a good place. But I think the conversation that we then need to have is, well, you shouldn't need to turn on your work personality on your
Yeah.
drive in.
Hmm.
Your personality should be your personality. There is authenticity to who you are. And speaking of toxic positivity, right? But at least you have a job, but I feel terrible 8 hours a day. That's not
Yep.
great. That's no way to be. Or I have to pretend that I have this different personality 8 hours a day. That stinks.
I also just beyond that, like conversation of it's, at least and be appreciative and, stay positive, those type
What did
of,
you die?
yeah. Like I think straight up avoiding the fact and trying to hide it with positive things is also very toxic. I
Yeah.
recently was a party to a call where it started with like, really upbeat music and everyone was like, "Yeah, I love this song." And like everything was really great. And then the meeting started and it was like, "By the way, here's 5 million more things that you're going to have to worry about and all of them are not great." Um Ugh, like what and before that
Right.
meeting even started, they knew what was gonna be on the meeting. It's not, adding a fun little,
Jingle.
snippet to the beginning of it is not gonna change the
Right.
fact that you have an employee base that is tired. Like, there's still a job to do, and that's fine, and
Right.
maybe that job includes a lot of things that nobody wants to do, but let's acknowledge that and let's give them some effective tools to be able to navigate through that, not, a cheery fun song at the beginning of a call. And it's just something that I think is happening a lot, and it's all meant in a good way, it's not
Yeah.
it's just that's exactly what it is, it's toxic positivity, it's positivity with a negative spin on it.
Yeah. And I think you brought it kind of full circle, right? The acknowledgement of what's happening, the acknowledgement of the feeling, and being okay to sit in that.
Mhm,
Whether that's for a little while or a longer time is probably person specific and
yeah,
probably experience specific, but acknowledging the fact that this meeting is going to be a little bit of a bummer, or, you know, whatever, however you want to phrase that, but acknowledging the fact that there's something going on that's hard. It doesn't
mhm,
have to be, earth shattering hard, but there's something hard. And it's okay to acknowledge that. It's okay to sit in that. And it's okay to use those and statements. This is hard. And I'm grateful to still have a job. This is hard. And I'm hopeful that the next quarter we'll get some additional headcount, or whatever that looks like, instead
mhm.
of saying, this is hard, but we might hire somebody new. That's not helpful.
Or next
So
quarter,
I
I'm
think
gonna take a trip by myself without the kids.
7 nights in
Whatever
a
that
hotel, sleep all
conversation
night
is.
through.
And
Yeah, whatever it is.
committing to it
Yes.
too, like, we can talk about these things all day, but without actually taking the action, a and in my 4-day challenge and in my guide that I'm very soon going to release, which I'm excited about, I talk specifically about building your plan towards reaching your goal or meeting your intention. And part of that is identifying your people, your support group, whether it's a person, whether it's a group, whoever it is. We cannot do all of this alone. We can process all of this alone. We can make our plans alone. We can do shadow work. We can do all of those things. But to take a tangible step forward, you need to have a support. And even if that support is literally just having someone to say, this is what I have going on today, and I don't need anything back from you. I just need to say this outside of myself. Even if that is your level of support, that is support. So, and we all
Makes
do
sense.
have someone. I do talk to some people who are like, I don't have anybody. My husband isn't supportive, or my boss won't listen to me, or my kids argue with me all the time. I'm guilty of that one. But even if, and my friends suck, like there's a lot of like that I hear as far as that negative side of it sometimes. And it doesn't have to be somebody you like are close with, or it could just be literally anybody. Like it could be me. Like if you're sitting here having this
Right.
conversation with me and you need someone to just be like, here's what I have going on, like that's fine. Like you can find people. It doesn't need to be someone who's already in your circle, but you need to be able to identify at the very least who it is, and then be able to work towards working with them in whatever manner you need to with an appropriate person.
It's
So
really funny you say that because you did a reading for me, I don't know, a few weeks ago, a couple months ago, and I was really kind of like in the thick of some stuff. And I wasn't I wasn't complaining much. I was really in this like just grind it out, you'll get through it, it'll be fine. I was
that
toxic
doesn't sound like Elizabeth at
positivity.
all.
Weird, right? Like grin and bear it, it'll be okay. And predictable. But and I think you knew, but I don't think you knew everything that was going on. And your reading, I think you were hesitant to give to me
Yeah. I was
because
like,
I think you were
how upfront do you want me to be
how
with
can I
this?
spin this? Yeah, how honest do you want me to be, friend? But I think that it was really helpful. So speaking of not knowing what the support is that you need, or not knowing where the support is going to come from, and trying to be open and accept support instead of, again, just powering through, your self-talk is important. The reading was really helpful for me to kind of have this moment. And at first I got mad. And it was just a moment of mad, but I was kind of like, I feel a little attacked by this. I don't appreciate it. But I sat on it for a minute, and it was right. It was so right. And it was very much like, Elizabeth, get out of your own way and let yourself experience what you're experiencing. Because if you continue to do this, nothing good will come of it. And I think that that toxic positivity needs to have an endpoint, or there will be some sort of combustible event if I
Mhm.
hadn't let it go, or let myself sit in it, or acknowledge that what was going on was really hard. No good would come. And so it was really this moment of support in a way. I've always, expected and come to learn that I can rely on you to be supportive. But this was not a method of support that I was really expecting. I was kind of doing it for fun, and then was
Yeah.
grumpy that it wasn't like rainbows and sunshine. But
God
it
damn
was
it.
really helpful. God damn it, Lindsay, can't you tell me good stuff? When am I going to win the
Yeah.
lottery? But it was perfect because it allowed me to take a step back and say, you're right. I'm wallowing in this in the wrong way. So how can I take a step back, acknowledge what's happening, not do this toxic positivity slog through? And it was really helpful. So from a I don't know, from a support standpoint, you don't have to go like talk to your spouse or talk to your boss. It doesn't have to be as traditional as that. I think the
Yeah.
support is just being open to support in different ways.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I love that.
Interesting.
It's very interesting. I didn't
It's
even
a
know I had
tricky
as much to
topic.
say on this.
I know, I'm sitting here and I'm like, I didn't know I felt so strongly, but in fact, I do.
All right.
I
Well,
think it's been helpful. I
I
hope
hope
it's been
so.
helpful.
I
I
know.
feel
Otherwise,
better.
It was nice just to talk to you anyway.
Yeah, see your face.
And
Always nice
see,
to see your face.
over not Zoom, whatever this is, StreamYard. All
Yes.
right.
Sponsor Lindsay.
All right. Well, thank you for chatting
Thank
with me,
you.
Miss Elizabeth Watson. You're getting ready to have a big move next week. Are you freaking out?
Yes. I am surprisingly calm. We are able to have a little window between when the movers come and when we have to be out of our current house. So I'm kind of in this like it'll all work out. I've got a couple extra days mode. Um, so I'll talk to you on
Until you have
Monday.
one day. You're like,
Yeah,
oh shit.
until the movers come and my house is still full, and then I'll lose my mind.
You got moved. I almost said at least. See, I do it. I'm a at least person, but you got movers. I did not get movers when I moved, and it's
You
like my
toxic
biggest
woman.
regret. I will never. I'm not moving again for 30 years, but
Oh my gosh.
if I did,
It
especially not after I
was
got these shelves
a
up. Like these babies are
conversation.
staying here forever.
Those are in. Those are permanent. You sell those with the house, friend.
Yeah,
Start
they're
again.
going.
That's
All
so
right.
funny.
Well, thank you for talking with me. I hope you guys
Thank you.
enjoyed, and we'll see you on the next one.